Hi, it's Emiko with Keyboard Magazine, and we are here at the 2016 Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah, and I am joined by Andrew Butler of Moto Pony today.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm a little frazzled from the bus ride, but I'm good, actually.
You had some trouble, yeah. The elevation.
The elevation here, we are about 7,000 feet above sea level, and the fact that we're both standing upright, I think, is an amazing thing.
You can't see the stilts. I'm actually propped up here.
Yeah, indeed. Is that how you're going to play on stage today?
No, I sit.
You sit. Okay. Well, let's talk about your performances here. We're at the ASCAP Music Cafe,
Yes,
as a
we
matter
are.
of fact.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, ASCAP, for having
As is
us.
labeled.
Tell us what you're playing here.
Here we're backlining. Getting gear up the mountains was going to be a task, so I have a Nord Electro 3 in replacement of my Rode suitcase. I have a MIDI controller controlling a patch on my laptop for in replacement of my Juno 60, which I use at home, and a Moog Voyager for bass.
Nice. Very nice. And so these are the replacements.
These are the replacements.
These are the replacements.
This is the festival stuff.
This is the festival stuff. Now, if you had your full rig in all of its glorious regalia, what would that look like?
My glorious regalia looks like a Rode suitcase, 1971, the Fender model.
Beautiful.
Which I had modded. It didn't have the effects loop on it, so I had to turn some outputs into inputs and put a loop on it. On top of that is the Voyager that I have, and a Moog Rogue next to that. And then to my right is the Roland Juno 60.
Great Scott, I would feel sort of sorry for roadies. Sort of. A little bit.
The only people that dislike it more than the roadies are the band. I take up quite a bit of real estate on stage, so.
I would imagine that you and the drummer are sort of pitted head to head when it comes to stage spacing, yeah?
A bit.
Indeed.
And yet, it looks cool, so I keep doing it.
Well, let's talk about your sounds.
Okay.
Because Moto Pony has a great, you guys are sort of classed as alternative-ish.
Yeah.
But you're so much more, I think you're so much more than that. And a lot of that, you're welcome, it's the truth. A lot of that has to do with the keyboard parts.
Thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit about your contribution to that in terms of on stage. Do you deviate a lot from the recordings, or do you play them as they are?
A lot of the things on the recordings were a bit more than is really truly convenient for me to do all at once. For example, I tracked some Hammond on the record and did not get to take a Hammond on the road.
Pushing that up the hill would be very difficult.
And if the roads wasn't big enough, the Leslie sure would be. Those are some of my favorite parts on the record. Other than that, there's a lot of outboard effects and stuff that I don't really mess with, that I can't control. I let the sound guy do it.
Right.
Part-wise, it's all pretty much there.
How do you feel about having such a big part in the music as a keyboard player? Because nowadays in popular music straight across the board, it's mostly guitar. Let's face it. It's mostly guitars.
And acoustic at that, yeah.
Acoustic, or it's synth stuff. And you're actually up there playing real keyboards.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing.
I we tried to use tracks for a while. And I felt really disconnected from the performance. It can be nerve-wracking and it can be busy, but it is a comfort to me to be a part of every part, to be involved on a deeper level. I mean, that's my selfishness at work, but I enjoy it. And while it sometimes can be overwhelming, it is really truly worth it to be that involved.
Any sort of awesome favorite feedback from audience members that go nuts watching you play keyboards?
So when I was at Doe Bay Fest, there was a Hammond B3. And I was so jacked, so I put my Juno up on top of the Hammond and took pictures of it and sent them to my old friends in high school. And so I play keyboard bass and my Rhodes and stuff, and I didn't have a foot switch for the Leslie, so I took off my shoe and switched the Half Moon switch with my toe. And it was really, really difficult. And there were really only 2 or 3 people that actually noticed it, and they were friends of mine behind the stage. And it was probably like the most sincere high five I've ever had in my entire life. And I think that was the highest compliment I've ever gotten as a keyboard player, was just that, way to go, buddy.
That you did that. Yeah.
That is
pretty cool.
I'm a keyboard player. People don't really get to pay a lot of attention. I'm kind of back in the corner.
Well, which is why we wanted to do a profile and a spotlight on you.
Which is why I like Keyboard Magazine so much. That you're my people.
Well, yes, we are your people and you're our people, and we appreciate that. And there's a lot of young people out there that are going to be watching this.
Okay.
So one of the things that I'm asking all of our artists to do that we profile is to speak to any young keyboard players and their parents who might have kids that are interested in pursuing music as I mean, here you are, you're a young man, you're established, you're being interviewed by a large magazine, and to say to the parents, hey, here's some advice for you if your kids want to pursue music as a profession.
To the parents or to the kids themselves?
Well, both, because I think the parents need support in figuring out how to encourage their children, and the kids need the encouragement too, right?
I mean, I guess if good advice comes from bad experiences, my parents were extremely supportive. Always. And actually, my dad's turning 60 on Thursday, so happy birthday, Dad.
Happy birthday, Dad.
And I mean 50. And
you meant 40.
I meant 45. Yeah, right, exactly.
Clearly,
30.
yeah.
And that support was a big part of how I was able to be a keyboard player later in life. And it, although I do have to say that if I'd been poorly treated, I could have been like a great blues musician by now. But to the kids, to students, I didn't spend enough time as a kid learning how to write. I didn't spend enough time really, truly loving the work that got me to this point, and I wish that I had done that more. And people will tell you the rest of your life that that's important, but it's absolutely important, and there's nothing even remotely untrue about that. But mostly the writing, I wish that I had been more creative as a kid. I was always pretty resigned to just be a keyboard player, but it's becoming increasingly important to me to write. So that's what I would tell kids.
Well, yeah, because I think as a keyboard player, you need to not just play the parts that you're given, but arrange them, interpret them, add your own characteristics to them, individualize them, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about a little bit about how you do that. So let's say because you are not the first keyboard player.
I was not.
Of Moto Pony.
I was not the first keyboard player of Moto Pony.
However,
I'm the best looking keyboard.
Well, this is without question. We know that. The We Heart Andrew fan club was outside. The throngs of people
I know.
out there.
God, it's so annoying.
But in terms of taking sort of the older stuff, do you get a chance to rearrange it and make it your own?
I have a little bit over time.
And how do you do that?
I joined the band as a gun for hire and played them pretty close to the chest. But there were things that I liked and things that I didn't like. I'm a big admirer of the last keyboard player that was in Moto Pony. So I try to learn his parts and learn from them.
Right.
And they're all pretty smart and well arranged. In terms of the new record, I think that I had a contributing factor in a lot of the writing process, from start to finish. But keyboard-wise, it's a texture, and you have to think of it like a texture, and you have to think of it like it's, setting a mood in a dynamic inside of a song.
Yeah.
And that's more of a revelation with Moto Pony. In my other work, I'm a much more percussive piano player, than a jazz player, and it's all about the time. So,
right.
And what you're adding to the time. But with Moto Pony, it's all about, for me, I think, it was about sitting down and quieting my mind and thinking about what the song really needed. It's all born out of necessity.
Right.
Showy stuff, no one likes it. It's got to be supporting to the melody. Really, at the end of the day, is all you're trying to support.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I noticed is that on some of the songs, the keyboard parts and the guitar parts sort of have almost like a call and answer, or to a certain degree, a little musical conversation.
Thanks
some
for
of what's going that.
I find that the Rhodes and the guitar are so similar sonically.
Yes.
That you have to be kind of careful with them.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that there's in some of your songs there's a lot of tension, which is kind of neat because in my mind as I listen, I go, oh, they're going to have a little riff off. Oh, let's see where this goes. But then in other times they sort of blend seamlessly into each other. Is that something that you guys planned in the production, or did that just sort of happen organically and you went, oh, let's stick with that?
I think it happened organically. I think I have a great relationship and chemistry musically with the other guys in the band, and so there's a moment, in our song Living in the Fire where Mike and I are doubling a lead line and we're doing it both on a Hammond and on the Rhodes, and there's something about the way that came together that I just really loved, and it was his part. He wrote it, and I thought, well, that could sound cool here too, and there it stuck.
Awesome. What's next for Moto Pony, and what's next for Andrew Butler as well?
Andrew Butler is trying to get into film scoring, so he's going to do some networking this week.
Great.
We are spending some time off the road to hang out with family. A couple of us are having a couple of kids, and I have a girlfriend at home that I like to, remember.
Yay.
So
Excellent.
it's important to go home every now and again. We're writing, and we're trying really hard to keep the content going.
Great. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we appreciate it. Stay tuned for more great interviews coming soon from Sundance and from Keyboard Magazine. Thanks for watching.